C.S. Lewis once said, "The present is the point at which time touches eternity." Have you ever felt your day slipping away because you're consumed by worries about the future? It's a common struggle, isn't it? Many of us find it challenging to fully engage in the present because we're haunted by anxieties about what lies ahead. This constant dread steals the joy of today and leaves us in perpetual unease. You're not meant to carry the weight of the future on your shoulders. This is a lesson that can be particularly tough for the younger generation to grasp, but it's essential. Worrying about tomorrow is futile because it's beyond our control. We have no knowledge of what tomorrow will bring, and thus, fretting over it only adds unnecessary stress to our lives. God has designed us to focus on the present moment. The Lord's Prayer exemplifies this by asking for our daily bread, not for the provisions of the future. God wants us to trust Him for today and live fully in the now. Stay with us as we delve deeper into this transformative message. If this resonates with you, please like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps us continue bringing you these powerful insights. Let's journey together towards a more peaceful and present-focused life. Let me hear a blessed from you all. Embracing the present moment is a lesson we often overlook, yet it holds profound wisdom. C.S. Lewis once remarked, "The future is something which everyone reaches at the rate of 60 minutes an hour, whatever he does, whoever he is." We are given today in two distinct parts: the hours of daylight for our endeavors and the hours of night for our rest. Each day is complete in itself, offering a balance of effort and repose. Have you ever paused to reflect on how much energy is squandered fretting about the unknowns of tomorrow? How often have you found that the fears you harbored for the future were unfounded, that the reality of tomorrow turned out to be vastly different from your anxious projections? Consider the countless times you've stayed awake, mind racing with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios, only to awaken to a new day that bore no resemblance to your fears. This futile exercise in worry robs us of our peace and productivity. Jesus' teaching, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble," echoes with timeless truth. It is a reminder to trust in the divine orchestration of our lives, to focus on the present tasks and challenges, and to leave the future in God's hands. Lewis's reflections often point us towards a deeper understanding of trust and surrender. He asks us to ponder, isn't it astonishing how much we waste on worrying, time that could be spent in active faith and trust? When we fixate on what lies ahead, we miss the beauty and opportunities of today. What if, instead of succumbing to anxiety, we embraced each day with a heart of gratitude and a spirit of trust? How different would our lives be if we took to heart the wisdom that today, with its unique set of tasks and blessings, is sufficient? Engaging with the present moment allows us to experience life more fully and connect more deeply with God's purpose for us. Lewis eloquently captures this sentiment when he says, "The present is the point at which time touches eternity." In the hustle and bustle of daily life, we must remind ourselves that worrying about the future only diminishes the present. By focusing on today, we honor the life God has given us and trust that He holds our tomorrows. In this light, let us ask ourselves, what can we do today to live more fully, love more deeply, and trust more completely? How can we shift our focus from the uncertain future to the present moment, where God's grace is abundantly available? By embracing these questions and allowing them to guide our actions, we can cultivate a life of peace, purpose, and profound trust in God's perfect plan. Reflect on this: our past is but a recollection, our future merely a figment of our imagination, while the present is the only true reality we experience. So why do we mar this precious present by dragging worries from these non-existent realms? If we dwell in the past or fret about the future, we are essentially letting two thieves steal our lives. In contrast, living in the present allows us to embrace the sufficiency of God's provision for each day, as highlighted in the Bible. C.S. Lewis once remarked, "The present is the point at which time touches eternity." This profound insight invites us to consider the depth and significance of living in the now. Have you ever pondered why we allow our minds to be hijacked by regrets or anxieties, robbing us of the joy and peace available in the present moment? Lewis believed that our obsession with the past and future is a distraction from our spiritual journey, a sentiment that resonates deeply with the biblical wisdom found in Deuteronomy 33 verse 25, "As your days, so shall your strength be." This verse is a powerful reminder that God's strength is tailored to each day's needs. Imagine waking up each morning and trusting that the strength you receive is perfectly measured for the challenges and blessings of that particular day. C.S. Lewis emphasized the importance of trusting in God's daily provision, comparing it to the manna provided to the Israelites sufficient for each day, no more, no less. I find immense comfort in this truth, especially when life feels overwhelming. For instance, Lewis wrote in Mere Christianity about the futility of worrying about the future, describing it as those useless days we spend trying to be sure about the next days. Instead, he encouraged living fully in the present, relying on God's provision and promises. When you think about your own life, how often do you find yourself entangled in worries about what has been or what might be? Do these concerns add any value to your life, or do they merely detract from the peace that is available to you now? Consider the times when God has provided for you, often in unexpected ways, reaffirming that His grace is indeed sufficient for today. In my own journey, I've had numerous opportunities to let worry consume me. Like the time I faced a significant career change and the uncertainty that accompanied it. I could have let fear dominate my thoughts, but instead, I chose to cling to the promise that God's strength would be sufficient for each day. And just as Lewis suggested, I found that living in the present moment, trusting in God's daily provision, brought a peace that surpassed all understanding. C.S. Lewis's reflections offer us a lens through which we can view our struggles and fears, urging us to release our grip on the past and future and embrace the present with faith. As he wisely put it, there are far better things ahead than any we leave behind. This encourages us to trust that God's plans, though unseen, are unfolding perfectly, providing just what we need at the right time. So, ask yourself, how can you let go of past regrets and future anxieties? How can you anchor yourself in the present, trusting that God's strength is sufficient for today? Embrace the truth that each day carries its own grace, and let this guide you towards a life filled with peace and divine sufficiency. In life, it's not about the uncertainty of tomorrow or the memories of the past, but rather the present moment that God graciously bestows upon us each day. This very moment is a divine gift from Him, a testament to His continuous care. C.S. Lewis beautifully encapsulated this idea when he said, "The present is the point at which time touches eternity. We must grasp that our existence is not a mere accident of time, but a deliberate act of divine love, meant for us to live fully in the now. Reflect on this, we may not be assured of tomorrow. And while we have journeyed through yesterday, it is the here and now where we can truly live and experience life. Lord, grant us the strength to embrace each day as it comes, living moment by moment." C.S. Lewis also noted, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." This profound wisdom urges us to focus on the present. As we navigate through the unpredictability of life, let us find solace in the promise that as our days unfold, so too shall our strength be replenished. This very moment is alive with God's blessings. Even when we cannot fully comprehend His plan, we can find joy in the present day's delights. Consider this: why do we allow the worries of an uncertain future to rob us of today's joy? As C.S. Lewis once pondered, it is not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. How often do we burden ourselves with worries about potential events that may never come to pass? We are reminded of Corrie ten Boom's comforting words, "Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God." This reassurance invites us to relinquish our anxieties about the future, trusting instead in God's eternal wisdom and care. None of us hold the power to foresee the future, but we do know the one who holds it, and it is in His hands that we find peace and security. Therefore, let us heed the Bible's call to walk with God, to place our trust in Him unwaveringly, and to emerge from life's trials rejoicing. In doing so, we not only honor God but also embrace the fullness of life He intends for us. By focusing on today, we liberate ourselves from the shackles of worry and open our hearts to the joys of living in the present. So, take each step with faith, cherish the gift of today, and find peace in knowing that while the future remains unknown, it is securely held by a loving and faithful God. Corrie ten Boom once wisely noted, "Worry doesn't drain tomorrow of its sorrow, it drains today of its strength." This profound statement resonates deeply with the teachings of Jesus and the wisdom found in the Scriptures. The New Living Translation captures this essence beautifully. So, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today. This verse emphasizes the importance of living in the present, a concept that C.S. Lewis eloquently explores in his works. Lewis once wrote, "The present is the only time in which any duty can be done or any grace received." Consider how often we find ourselves trapped in the cycle of anxiety, borrowing trouble from the future, while simultaneously carrying the weight of past regrets. Jesus' counsel to avoid worrying about tomorrow isn't just practical advice, it's a profound spiritual principle. When we worry, we aren't just anticipating potential problems, we're attempting to control the uncontrollable, to live multiple days at once. This burdensome approach leads to a fragmented existence, where we are neither fully present today nor prepared for tomorrow. C.S. Lewis, in his book The Screwtape Letters, vividly illustrates this point through the character of Screwtape. A senior demon advising his nephew, "Our business is to get them away from the eternal and from the present." By this, Lewis underscores the demonic strategy of distracting us from the present moment, where God's grace is most potent. How often do you find yourself lost in the what-ifs of the future, paralyzed by fears that may never materialize? What burdens of yesterday's failures do you drag into today, making it difficult to move forward? Jesus invites us to release these burdens. He teaches us that each day carries its own set of challenges and that we are equipped with sufficient grace for today. Living in the present, fully trusting in God's provision, requires faith and surrender. It means acknowledging that our attempts to control the future only rob us of the peace available now. C.S. Lewis reminds us that our task is to respond to God's grace moment by moment, not to hoard worries for the days to come. As we reflect on this, let's ask ourselves, are we living in the moment, trusting in God's provision for today, or are we entangled in the anxiety of tomorrow's uncertainties and the regrets of yesterday? Embracing the wisdom of Jesus and the insights of C.S. Lewis, we find that true strength and peace come from focusing on the present, where God meets us with His grace and love. In the words of Lewis, "Aim at heaven and you will get earth thrown, and aim at earth and you will get neither." Let us aim at heaven by trusting God with our today and our tomorrow. Corrie ten Boom said, "Anxiety is carrying tomorrow's load with today's strength, carrying 2 days, in other words, at once. It's moving into tomorrow ahead of time." Anxiety doesn't empty tomorrow of its sorrow, it empties today of its strength. Isn't it interesting that in the context of worry and anxiety, Jesus talks about our relationship with the day? I would like to say that there are many people in this room, and one of the reasons anxiety and fear might be intensifying in your life is because you're trying to live multiple days at once, and you can't. You are worked up about things that may never happen, and you may not even be there for them to happen to you. Are you here? Are you here? Or are you somewhere 5-10 years ago? Are you somewhere 5-10 days ago? Are you somewhere 5 days from now? Or are you here? Here's what I love about God. He's so cool. He's like, "I'm going to teach you about today," he says. It's not the most encouraging teaching on today. He's like, "Listen, today's got a ton of trouble, so just focus on today because tomorrow's going to have trouble too." But I love this. He's like, "Tomorrow will take care of itself," which is another way of saying, guys, that's what I do. I'm in the future, I'm in the past, and I'm in the present. You can't be, you won't be, and if you try to be, you're going to be worried. In the midst of our daily lives, it's easy to find ourselves burdened by the weight of future aspirations and worries. Yet, as C.S. Lewis poignantly observes, The present is the point at which time touches eternity. This calls us to embrace the present moment, grounding ourselves in the grace and strength provided for today. Reflecting on this, we are reminded that the pursuit of greatness is not a distant goal, but a daily endeavor. Jesus calls us to be great today, to embody His love and strength in our current circumstances. Imagine the young couple dreaming of celebrating their 22nd wedding anniversary. While such milestones are worthy goals, Jesus desires to help them cultivate love and understanding today. It's through these daily acts of kindness and commitment that lasting relationships are built. C.S. Lewis beautifully captures this sentiment, stating, "Isn't it funny how day by day nothing changes, but when you look back, everything is different?" Similarly, for those longing for children, the call is to find contentment and purpose in the present. The journey of life, with its highs and lows, is navigated one day at a time. This echoes Lewis's wisdom. The future is something which everyone reaches at the rate of 60 minutes an hour, whatever he does, whoever he is. But how often do we let the worries of tomorrow overshadow the joys of today? Jesus offers us the strength to focus on the present, knowing that tomorrow will bring its own challenges. As Lewis puts it, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. This perspective encourages us to invest fully in today, for it is the only time we can truly influence. Have you ever found yourself anxious about the uncertainties of the future? How often do we deplete our energy by worrying about battles yet to be fought? Jesus teaches us to live one day at a time, understanding that each day has its own sufficient troubles. Lewis warns us against borrowing trouble from the future, illustrating this through the saying, "Don't cross that bridge till you come to it yet." We often find ourselves standing miles away, trying to cross bridges that are not yet in sight. In the end, Jesus reminds us to be present, to embrace the grace available for today, and to trust that He will provide the strength needed for tomorrow when it arrives. As C.S. Lewis wisely notes, relying on God has to begin all over again, every day, as if nothing had yet been done. So, let us focus on today, giving it our best, and trusting that God's grace will meet us where we are, moment by moment. Deuteronomy 33 verse 25 reminds us, "As your days, so shall your strength be." This promise from God assures us that His grace will meet our needs each day, just as the manna did for the Israelites in the wilderness. They received exactly what they needed for each day, no more, no less. This divine provision highlights an essential truth: we are given grace sufficient for the present moment, not for hoarding or storing up for the future. C.S. Lewis, in his profound wisdom, echoes this sentiment through his writings. He often emphasized the futility of worrying about what lies beyond our immediate control. In his book, The Screwtape Letters, Lewis wrote, "The present is the point at which time touches eternity." He encourages us to live in the present, for it is the only time that is truly ours. Reflecting on this, we might ask ourselves, why do we waste precious energy fretting over what we cannot change or predict? What fears of tomorrow or regrets of yesterday are robbing us of today's peace? Paul Powell's advice aligns seamlessly with this philosophy. There are 2 days out of every week we must learn never to worry about just two. One is yesterday, and the other is tomorrow. Yesterday is gone forever, a chapter closed. Tomorrow is a mystery, beyond our grasp and control. This leaves us with today, the only time frame within which we can act and find God's grace sufficient. This perspective prompts us to consider, what battles of today are we equipped to fight with God's strength? How can we focus on carrying today's burdens without the weight of the past or future? Lewis once said, "We may ignore, but we can nowhere evade, the presence of God." The world is crowded with Him. He walks everywhere incognito. This suggests that God's presence and provision are constants in our daily lives, even if we do not always recognize them. Every challenge, every burden we face today comes with the assurance of His strength. How often do we pause to acknowledge His presence in our struggles? Reflecting on these insights, we can find immense comfort in the knowledge that we are not alone. Each day brings its share of trials and temptations, but it also brings God's unwavering support. As we navigate the complexities of our daily lives, let us remember to draw upon His strength, just as the Israelites did with the manna. By focusing on the present and trusting in God's provision, we can face each day with renewed courage and faith. In conclusion, consider these questions to delve deeper into your own experiences. What burdens are you carrying today that you can lay at God's feet? How can you better live in the present, trusting that God's grace is sufficient for today? By pondering these questions and embracing the wisdom of C.S. Lewis and Paul Powell, we can find the strength to live each day fully and faithfully, secure in God's everlasting promise. Live one day at a time. Only one person knows what's going to happen tomorrow, and that is God. It's very clear in Scripture that God is the one who is in control of your tomorrow. But we need to be careful not to focus too much on the past or the future, but focus on where we are today. Tomorrow belongs to God. I know you're scared. The times are shaky. The odds are set against you, and I know you're worried. I know you're scared. I'm not saying you won't go through tests. I'm not saying you won't go through trials. I'm not saying you're going to get everything you want. But I'm telling you that God has an expected end for your life, and that His thoughts are good towards you and not evil. Whatever comes and whoever goes, God is still going to bless you. So stop worrying about your future. Tomorrow belongs to God.